Yn gyntaf rydw i am cymryd y cyfle hwn I ddiolch I bawb sydd wedi cymryd rhan heddiw. Mae wedi bod i'r mwyafrif ohonoch chi yn achlysur ble ni wedi dysgu wrth ein gilydd am pethau sydd yn bwysig yn ein cymuned ni. I want to take this opportunity in thanking all those who have contributed in any way to today. And it's been a day where the majority of us have learned something, not only about our communities, but hopefully about ourselves as well, because we are part of the community. I want to specifically make reference to Bedring. I was particularly moved by what you said and the initiative that you are presenting in this part of Wales. I think it has mileage, and I think you're the right person to lead it. I congratulate you and I commend you. Wonderful. However, as Bishop of St. David's, I can't just look at one county. I have to be mindful that the Diocese of St. David's consists of 3 counties: Carmarthenshire, Pembrokeshire and Ceredigion. And also, I am a Bishop of the Church in Wales. And I am mindful also that this generation bill is also relevant to the whole of Wales. And let's overflow it into the British Isles, shall we? This is something that is relevant in each home, community throughout Britain. And particularly at this time, I feel, when we are nationally and internationally and globally on the knife's edge. As I speak at this very moment in time, as you have spoken, whole communities have been blown to smithereens. Children have been orphaned. Parents have been left without their children. Families and communities have lost their homes. How fortunate we are that distance separates us from such atrocities. However, being children of a common God, we are not separated. And we suffer with them, should suffer with them, and ensure that such suffering comes to an end. You will excuse me if I look at this from a Christian perspective, because that's what I'm here for today, otherwise I might as well go home. The diocesan statement and strategy is important in what has been said and shared today. The deepening of the Christian faith, its values and its implications on individuals and communities is very relevant. The experience of knowing Jesus Christ in one and in one another, and the joy that knowledge brings in realizing our common purpose in the community and the mission of the Church, unites us together. I'm mindful that as a diocese, we have organizations which are sponsored by us that has a huge impact on the community. Tir Dewi, for an example. Plant Dewi. These institutions within the body of the Church of the Diocese of St. David's is making a difference. But I have to ask the question, is it making enough of a difference? It's something that we must ask ourselves regularly. This encycling commission of Jesus to share his love and his grace, and to do good for others, be they Christian or not, to serve one another as he has served and continues to serve us, must be the mandate of the Church. Whether you are baptized or not, the Church must express its love for every individual, and the right of that individual to have dignity and purpose in life. It's not rocket science. You spoke earlier of Harold Wilson. I knew Harold Wilson. Clang! Name dropping again. But I remember him when I was a boy. And I remember him telling me in Newtown, many, many years ago, Dorrien, the purpose of everyone is to help everyone. That is what we as a church must do. And as I've been going around my diocese in this, the first year of my episcopacy, I am very mindful not only of the successes that are happening, the length and breadth of St. David's Diocese, but also the challenges that we are meeting. Challenges that undermine society. Llanelli, for example, has the highest rate of drug addiction, not only in Wales, but statistically in Britain. How sad is that? How challenging is that? So, as a church, it is not unrealistic for us to be political, to play our part in political issues, those things that politics can do to make a difference in people's lives. And that, I'm sure you will all agree, is cross-party. Those who are elected to represent our interests in the High Court of Parliament or the Senedd are there to represent the needs of the whole society. And when it fails people and communities. Well-being is something that we hear of time and time again. For us of a certain generation, it's difficult for us to really take on well-being because we were taught just get up and get on with it. But not everybody can do that. For an example, a little boy in a school that I visited just over a year ago came from a background that could not give him that well-being, could not give him the opportunities that he needed to expand a searching young mind. We as a church must ensure that such well-being is not only shared but encouraged in our society. It must be sustainable, and well-being, as Christ most certainly showed us when he was personally amongst us, is about the whole person, not just part of that person. It's about healing, restoration, and giving people a sense of purpose and belonging. You see, Jesus reached out to those on the edges of society, and he criticized those who established the standard of society. That is what the church must do. That is what we must do. Welsh Government, and I was so glad to see the First Minister welcome us here today. Welsh Government is defining the future for Wales. I have to say, in the light of politics in Wales and in England today, I fear for our future, especially next year. Because I fear that people will seek for answers where they will get none. Where gung-ho politics does nothing but undermine real politics. So we have to be radical in our approach. We have to practice intellectual thinking. We have to realize what it means to be a Welsh person at the beginning of the third millennium, so that we can ensure a better Wales, a productive Wales, a useful Wales, and a reflective Wales of what it means to be a Welsh person. I fod yn rhan o gymuned. You see, church, people always say to me, "Oh, Bishop, I can be a Christian without going to church." Oh, that's very good indeed, but I was always taught to be a Christian, you are a part of a community. And when you're a part of a community, you've got a role to play. That is true of the people of Wales. It is to ensure a sustainability in our common journey, both culturally, in our language, in our identity, in our literature, in our education, in our encouraging people to take that great step of individualism, exercising their talents and their capabilities for the greater good of everybody. Would that we could do that. What a wonderful social Wales it would be. One of the things that I was greatly impressed with when I was in St. David's as canon residentially was the care in the community, where people were made to feel part of the community and that they were contributing to the community. I'm afraid that the resources to maintain these things are slipping through our fingers. We are spending money in the wrong places. And people will be the poorer for it. Economic response to environmental challenge is part of well-being. Ensuring that Wales and Britain is kept clean and wholesome. We know that English hymn, "In England's green and pleasant land." We need to ask questions. We need to ask questions about how we are polluting our rivers. The Archbishop's project calling us to realize exactly what's happening. And as a boy from Carmarthen, living back where I was born and brought up, I can't go to the Towie to fish any longer because there's no fish in it. What does that say? The veins of Wales are flowing, but there's no health in it. And therefore we need to ask ourselves the question, how can rural Wales do what it's called to do in order for profit but benefit of the land that is being farmed? Fairness and social justice need to be reviewed. How can we make individuals and communities feel better about themselves and have pride when we have nothing to invest in it? I was party the other day to signing a document for grant aid. You needed a degree to understand it. Why do we make life so difficult for ourselves? Why does the civil service, and I'm looking at an MP because you're in my direct line of fire, and you can do something about it. Why? And the people have to come cap in hand to receive benefits which they rightly need and rightly deserve. Food banks at this age is a disgrace. It is a cause for pride, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Then, standards. Well, as a church, I suppose we must look at how we set standards, because Jesus is the standard, and he's full of love and he's full of compassion, and we know this to be true. But how can we as a church show a standard of compassion and love when those who are outside of the church look in at the church and see that we're arguing about same-sex marriage? A church that is meant to be inclusive is seen to be exclusive. In the church of this diocese, I want everybody, whoever they are, whatever their preferences or their identity, to know that they belong to God. And they are welcome in our churches, however the church may define itself in the next few months. Net zero, now that is hard. How are we going to have this kind of footprint where the world can benefit from what we do? Encouraging people to have natural parts of graveyards. Archdeacon, what a problem. A church in my diocese that has the vision to put solar panels on its roof are being hindered by Carmarthenshire County Council of doing so. In a church that you can't even see from the road, and solar panels that only the birds can see. Nonsensical. But I have to ask the question, have things gone too far? Newgill in the next 10 years will be underwater. An ice age feature will be lost to us in the pebbles that mark such an important, beautiful spot. It's something that should worry us all. What about us? We'll still be fed, we'll still be watered. But in other parts of the world, people will be desolate. The Bible speaks of responsibility in justice. It speaks of care through the words of Jesus, the incarnate God for others. It calls upon us to reflect upon the past, but not to live in it. To make preparation for the future, which some of us may never see. But to work very hard in the reality of this world, in the challenges of the present. Proverb verse 22 of chapter 13 says, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children." A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. Christian ethics, social justice, politics, access to resources, and the dignity of the created order is part of our calling. Christian values of fairness, compassion, and responsibility fall at our feet. Are we brave enough to take up the gauntlet and to lead the way? My illustrious predecessor by 129 bishops, St. David himself, shared a message with his disciples. Keep the faith. Be joyful. And do the little things. Mother Julian of Norwich, centuries after, spoke about our human lives as a small nut in our hand. And within that nut was contained the total love of God in you and in me. That's how God holds every single human being in his hand. A love that is shared but not divided. As David was dying, so the story goes, Jesus appeared to him. And as Jesus was leaving, David called to him, "Take me with you." Jesus is calling us to a better life, not only into eternity, but here on earth. He wants us to live the life in a world that he has given us, as custodians and as brothers and sisters. He has given us the opportunity and commands us to love one another as he loves us. Lord, take us with you.